I'm Sherry Cutler, and I am making one of my absolutely favorite stuffings. And I took a family tradition and we're making cornbread stuffing. But I took an old family recipe, and instead of the stale bread that I've used in the past, I decided to change it to cornbread. And I tested it out on my family, and they raved about it, and they still rave about it. And I'm telling you, it's super simple, and you probably have all the ingredients in your pantry or fridge. So we're going to start out just following the directions on the cornbread mix, which is 3 cups of cornbread to 1 cup of water. And you are just going to mix this like you would making regular cornbread. Now the difference is when I put this on the cookie tray, I pre-greased the cookie tray. You can use parchment. You are going to make this cornbread super thin because you're going to want to cube it up, and I will show you that process. So I'm going to dump this directly onto the tray. So as you get it worked around the cookie sheet, this is going to go into a 350 oven. And since we are making it thinner, I am saying it probably is around 10 minutes to 12 minutes, depending on how thin you get it pushed out, and it will be done that quick. Now that I got it all smoothed out, and it's not perfect, but it doesn't need to be, it will do just fine baking up. So I'm going to put this in a 350 oven for 10 to 12 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to chop up a 1/2 cup of celery and a 1/2 cup of onion that we will be adding to the stuffing. And I like to take celery stalks and clean them, cut the sides off, and then I like to half them in half so they're smaller bites. But you can, if you like bigger chunks in your stuffing, you can cut it to whatever size you'd like. Over a cup, but you can add as much onion or as much celery to the batch of stuffing. I like to round it off to a cup to a cup and a half to the stuffing, and it works. Whatever works for you is good. If you don't like onions, just add celery, or vice versa. So now that we've got that done, I'm going to set it over by the stove, because we will be finishing the stuffing on the stove top, which is really great because if you have a turkey or pies or potato casserole in your oven, this cooks on the stove top, and you can bake the cornbread 2 days ahead, and it will be delicious and easy to put together. Now that I have this out of the oven, I'm going to show you a trick of how to get it out of your pan and let it cool that way. So you want to take a wire cooling rack that is about the same size as your cookie sheet. And all I do is I flip it upside down before I cool it for very long, because you want it warm so the oil releases it from the pan, and it'll cool a lot quicker. Okay, so once you let it cool down, you know, our house is pretty cool today because it's cold outside, but you let it cool completely. So I just take a knife, and you want to cut it. It doesn't matter if they're all perfect, but I start cutting it row by row, and then after I do that, I'll come in and I'll start to cube it And once you get it all cubed, you put it onto a cookie tray for 2 or even 3 nights, and I loosely cover it with a light towel over it. You don't want to put saran over it because it won't dry out. And you want them kind of like stuffing cubes, like stale bread. So after that happens, we can put together our stuffing. I'm going to start heating this cast iron skillet up. And so I put it on medium heat. So I'm going to put 1/4 cup of butter into the bottom of the pan and get it melting and get this cast iron super warm. As that melts, what we're going to do is we are going to add our celery and our onion to get it to saute up till it's translucent. Once you get this butter melted all the way and you hear that it's sizzling and you know the pan is heated up, I'll add salt and pepper, and I never measure the salt and pepper, but you can do it to your, a lot of people like a lot of salt, some don't. So I just shake a couple of shakes onto it. And at the very end, you can always add more if you need to, but you can never take those spices away. So this will take about probably 5 minutes to cook down. If you do not have a cast iron skillet, you can do it in a saucepan, or even if you're doing a big batch, like when I cook for my whole family, I cook in a big stock pot, and you can do everything in that stock pot. Now I'm going to add, as this starts to cook down, about 2 teaspoons of Italian spices. I put 1.5 cubes of chicken bouillon cubes. It's not quite dissolved, but when I pour it in, it will dissolve. So it's a 1.5 cubes to 1 cup of water. And I'm going to pour this in now that the vegetables are ready. And this can kind of melt that chicken stock. If you have a can of chicken stock, you can use that. But sometimes I have chicken stock, and sometimes I make my own. Sometimes I use chicken bouillon. It all tastes the same. Okay, I'm going to let that just warm up a little bit to get that chicken bouillon to melt completely. And I'm telling you, that is it. The last part is we put in these croutons that I cubed about 3 days ago. So once they get dried out, you can just put them in a Ziploc bag and save them for another day or 2, and they'll be just fine. And see how some are bigger and some are little? It doesn't matter, because you're going to add it to it, and you don't want to cook it for too long after that, because you don't want soggy stuffing. So basically, I'm going to turn the heat down to low. So as you add the croutons, I just lightly stir them in that liquid. Now, I put a cup of liquid, and this was about 5 cups of croutons. And what I do is I stir and make sure that there's enough liquid, because there's nothing worse than getting a crispy crouton. And so I let it all absorb, but the more you stir, the more mushy it will get. So I lightly toss it, and that is it. And so if it was too dry for me, I would add 1/4 cup of water, and I make sure that I add enough chicken bouillon, because sometimes chicken broth in a can doesn't have a lot of flavor, so I'll stick in like 1/2 bouillon cube into it to give it a little bit more flavor. But that is it. So make sure to like and subscribe, and I'm telling you, you are gonna love it. It's super simple. We will include the recipe for you, and we'll send out a PR kit if you tell us some of your family traditions. And thanks for your support, and happy Thanksgiving. Bye.